Hello, everybody. So I envisioned like a low-key gathering among friends, and instead it's like a celebratory lunch for 35 people. It's always like a homecoming for me to come back to the Stanford Park. When I traveled as CEO of Audubon, I once logged 54 room nights here in a year. 2 months of my life in this hotel. So it's like coming home again, which being interim CEO of ALF has been, because it's allowed me to reconnect with so many people and places that are really dear to me and really part of my heart. I want to say thanks to all of you for the support and advice that you've given me over the last 4.5 months. It's been a busy time. It's been a busy time for everybody. We've all been fully occupied. ALF has been super busy this past summer, and I wanted to, we just want to take a little time today to all get on the same page and to give you a sense of what we've been up to. So here's the bottom line. We're going to run a budget surplus this year, thanks to you. We're on the cusp of a huge CEO transition and a massive infusion of new board members. And all of that against the backdrop of a country that needs to rebuild respect and to overcome division. And so we'll cover all those topics today. I thought that, so here's sort of the run of show today. We're going to hear from class 45 because it's always fun to connect with the current class. It brings us all back to all of those special moments. And so we'll do that today. We will have a conversation with one of the 4 multi-generational ALF Senior Fellow families. We will get an update about the board building that we've been doing, and we will, of course, look at the financials. So today is a celebration of the thing that we have in common. ALF's mission to train diverse leaders for the common good. I think it's so elegant, it's so simple, and it's so sufficient. And it's the right public stance for ALF. 4 decades ago, business leaders in the Valley had the foresight to say, you know, we don't really understand the nonprofit sector, and they don't really trust us, and none of us really know how to deal with government. Why don't we all get in the same room and talk and listen to each other? And we've done that now for nearly 4 decades. It is the special secret thing that is ALF, and I can't tell you what an honor it is to have been asked to give back for these last 4.5 months. So with that, we're going to do that other thing that we do. We're going to do a check-in. About 10 minutes at your table. Have at it. So let me give you a sense of where we're at. So we'll start with the financials. Last year was a tough year. Last year we missed budget by about 350 grand on a budget of about 1.8. It's really pretty simple and straightforward, and I want to be really transparent. This is where our revenue comes from. And so I'm going to focus on individual giving. So foundation giving, what's changed here is historically foundation giving has been more like 250. But we know that right now foundations see a need to divert a lot of that to core social services. And so we scaled way back on our goal this year. But this is what our budget looks like. And this is what our fundraising looks like. And so this time last year, we were somewhere south of 300K on that budget of 600K. This year, we are nearly 3/4 of the way to the budget. And the reason that's important is that I want to make sure that ALF is positioned for a new CEO and a new board to not have money worries. And I made that my commitment from day one. It was one of the 5 priorities I shared with the board, with the advisory council. And all I did here was ask for your help. You were the ones who made this possible. and you have our heartfelt thanks for this. So that's a good place to be. We found ourselves I've been in this role since May, and I noticed that with 3 people terming off the board, we were about to be 12. Kind of hard to run ALF with 12 people. And so what we did is we went back to the list that we had, we went back to the pipeline, and we supercharged it. And so a little later today, Rolanda Pierre-Dixon will tell you about that. But this is what happened, is we're bringing on 10 new board members. And I'll let you take a minute here and absorb that. Pretty cool, right? Pretty crazy, right? Who does that? And the advice that I got in no unclear terms from the terrific advisory council that several of you sit on was you're really going to have to take care of onboarding and acculturation, and that you're going to have to pay a lot of attention to this. So who's going to do that? And I said, okay, here's who's going to do that. I'm going to share with you something that we just shared with the board. This is the slate of officers that will be proposing to the board next Wednesday. I had nothing to do with this. I said no until I couldn't, but I really believe that having had a lot of time in this seat, being able to work really closely with the new CEO and ensure a smooth transition, to be able to share what I've learned about all of the good work that the staff does, to be able to do that in a really, in a great partnership, I think is going to be important. When I ran the Audubon Society the first 5 years, I had board chairs who dipped in when they needed to, and in my last 6 years, I had a real partner, and I know the difference, and that's the kind of board chair I want to be to an incoming CEO, and we may have news on that front as soon as next week. Fingers crossed. Lots has to happen between now and then, and a lot of people are working hard on that. So at the end, we're going to have plenty of time for Q&A. But I want to introduce you to the wilderness experience this year. I went with class 45, and we have a really fun video made by Richard Angel Vega, and then we're going to hear from class 45 members Chris Brown, founding and managing partner of the Nova Rosa Group, and Catherine Kerna, ambulatory CEO of Sutter Health. I hope you enjoy the video.
thank you for inviting us here today. As a prompt, Chris and I were given 4 questions to ponder. And so we'll kind of riff off of one another. But one of them, or the first one, was why did we even spend the time once we had learned about ALF to join ALF? And so I'll give my perspectives, and I'm sure Chris will give his. So I've been here in the Bay Area for about 10 years. My family and I relocated from the East Coast in New York City. And I have had the benefit of being a part of many leadership organizations that I have found to be worthwhile over the course of my career. But when I read about ALF, I had never quite seen the intersection of an organization really intended to change the world through the alliances across, as David talked about, the non-for-profit sector, the for-profit sector, the government sector, labor, et cetera. And so having been at Stanford Healthcare during COVID and experiencing the importance of relationships in doing anything during that horrible and inspiring time for all of us, I thought to myself, the family's here, and so if I'm ever going to be able to make that type of impact on behalf of Sutter Health or another organization, this seems like a really unique way to get to know people who are also as committed to this community, so that whether it's COVID or another challenge, or maybe one that we create for ourselves, those relationships are there and solidified in a really powerful way to help our community and change the world. So.
Yeah. And in changing the world, I think, I've spent my career, I'm a recovering lawyer and lobbyist, and so I've sat at this intersection most of my career about trying to figure out how to better connect, because before we are able to connect, we can't get to transformation. And so for me, this experience for the first 6-7 months has been amazing in that we have truly connected. Catherine and I kind of showed up unrehearsed and said, we're best friends now, we'll figure this out. Because that experience that I'm sure you're all familiar with from your own journey through ALF, it creates a special bond. And so beyond our jobs and our titles, I think where we are now in the middle of the inspiration phase of trying to figure out, okay, now that we're connected, what are we now going to do with that connection? And what kind of transformation can we inspire across these sectors? Because one thing that we took away from our experience was looking around our circle and realizing all the diverse communities that are represented, all the different industries across finance, across technology, across government, et cetera. We realized there's not a single world leader on this planet we could not reach, just in our class. What could that mean for the rest of ALF? And so I think that we're in that inspiration moment now, and I think we recognize what we have and what we are now a part of, thanks to all of you. And now we got 6-7 more months to figure it out. But it's been an amazing journey so far, and I'm just really proud to be a part of this community.
That's great. And Chris led us on our last evening, or actually the morning of our wilderness venture that you just saw there, really inspiring the group to think about what that could be for us, It's hard not to maybe end our remarks on our experience in the wilderness, and so we talked a little bit about this. Going in, as all of you experienced, everybody talks about the wilderness, right? And of course, as is his wonderful candor, Byron was like, I'm not giving you guys any more information. You're just gonna have to figure it out. I came in a little cocky, to be honest. I was a hiking leader in college. I've spent a lot of time out in the wilderness. I think I know my stuff. And reflecting back on the experience, and that was fun. We had not seen that. And Byron, thank you. You did not show any embarrassing pictures, as was your promise. It's interesting, as I reflect, I was challenged in some of the ways that I thought I would be. Really, not being next to my phone. I turned my phone off for 6 days, which I can't remember the last time with 3 kids and a busy job I've done. It was a gift. I would do it again. But I was also challenged in some ways that I didn't anticipate I would be. And so maybe that's the real learning, is that not only are you in a foreign environment, not with all the accoutrements of life, so you really get to know people. I mean, Chris and I have probably seen one another. We did see one another in maybe our best of selves and probably our worst of selves too. It just brings down all of those barriers and really reminds us of what's important. And it really is relationships. We don't need all that stuff. We can actually survive quite well on not that much. So so it was fun. It was fun to see that. And Byron, we should show that at the next class of 45 meeting, because people will want to see it.
Yeah. just another reflection about summits and a lot of discussion during our wilderness trip about what summits really meant, because many of us were hiking leaders and expert campers. But for me, at least, given all my years of experience being in the woods, I actually never thought about reaching a summit of a mountain. And that became more and more closer to the end of our journey, a surprising goal I had.
Yeah.
Like, wow, I think I really have to get to the top of this damn mountain, right? Like, at first I could thought, yeah, just be okay enjoying the wilderness, enjoying the beauty of where we sat. And then it became this mission. And I think a lot of us had some version of that mission to overcome or achieve some personal summit beyond a physical summit. So, amazing journey, more to be discussed, and looking forward to getting to know more of you. Thank you.
And thank you both for letting me accompany you on your trip.
Yes.
Thanks for making
That
the
was
time
great.
today. So the fundraising piece really is important, and your role in making ALF work matters, because you are the universe of ALF donors. There's not like some huge outside group of donors who are going to support this mission, because you are deeply rooted here in one of the most remarkable communities on earth. So I'm really excited about being able to say that this year we have gone from 8 donors at the 10K level to 13 donors, and we have increased by 50% the number of donors who are in the 30K level and in the 50K and above level. Those are the kinds of numbers that really help us get to the goal. And best of all, now we take Apple Pay. That is thanks to you, Ann Skeet, who said, you don't take Apple Pay. So thank you all. So Lisa Sonsini is board president of the Sbrato Family Foundation, as if I needed to tell you that, a stalwart investor in ALF, a past board chair, and a member of ALF. So Lisa, your commitment means the world to us. A few words?
Well, first of all, just wanted to say thanks. Honored to be in this room with everybody, and so great to see all of you again. It's been a long time for some and more recently for others, but it just, you can feel the power just when everybody gets together. Yeah, as I said, so I've had the privilege of supporting ALF not just as a donor, but on the board a couple times, chair the fundraising committee at one point. Actually double dipped in classes too, class 14, and then also the first education class. And then now on the advisory council. And I have to say that just having all of that perspective and time with the ALF over the years has really given me a unique opportunity to really have, kind of a front row seat as to what's going on. And then also to really have a pulse on just the amazing impact this community has had, not just here in Silicon Valley, but beyond. And so, I think that really what keeps me inspired every day to stay involved, both as a donor and on these different committees, is really, that every dollar invested here multiplies in so many ways. It's not just, more dollars, but, when you think, if you were to put the value of the connections that happen because of ALF, the leadership and just the lasting change, I've seen alumni step into critical leadership roles. Case in point, Mr. Yarnold here, whenever asked, it seems like anyone that's part of the ALF network does what is needed at the right time, because they're asked, because they see a need, and because it's necessary. And so to see that happen in so many ways, and just the lifelong bonds that have been formed, I think of all the connections that I've made through ALF, everybody has that story, right? I mean, from not just your class, but everybody that you have connected with. I see Steve here, and it took a long time for us to have a class 14 reunion, but we did about a year ago, and it was so special to actually see all of our classmates perform instruments I never knew they play, recite poetry I didn't know they wrote. It was a really, really special time after over 20 years of having done our class. So, I think that the ripple effect just of the work you see continues on and on. And so, just continuing to invest, because I believe in the power of ALF. We all believe in the power, right? And now is the most critical time. I feel like every time we say now is the time we need more ALF, but now really, when we think of how many organizations focus on dialogue across difference as like their major purpose. Not many. Is that, and does anybody think that's not necessary right now to be able to really understand and to decrease the polarization in the way in which we engage with one another to build community? And we can't do this alone. You know, we all have a role, whether it's as a funder to strengthen the impact with financial investment, whether it's your time. Everybody here has been giving, and you're giving your time here today just by being here. And we thank you to learn more and to hopefully re-engage more. I think what you've seen with David making this commitment to really get folks to increase gifts, to really be ready for the future CEO and the future board, it is so necessary. So just want to say I'm proud to stand alongside of each of you, and just that I invite you to join, to really deepen your commitment in whatever way you can. More time, more money, more everything is needed. We need it all. And just so that we can all be sure that ALF not only continues not only just to thrive, but that it really continues to transform lives. We were all transformed in this room, and we need to make sure that we continue to support that going forward for all the future folks that will have the opportunity to be part of ALF. So thank you, and I will turn it back to David.
So I was really excited in my first month. The journalist in me, I think, I used to run the Mercury News. I spent 3 decades telling the story of Silicon Valley. And the journalist in me was really excited to hear that we had a 2-generation family in ALF. It turns out there are 4. There are also dozens of couples. You all have been very busy. And so we thought that for the first time, it might be really fun to talk about what does it mean to be a 2-generation ALF family. And so, excuse me, to tell this intergenerational story, board member Tom Giles, a key member of the CEO Search Committee, is going to facilitate a conversation between Ellen Kamei and Rosemary Kamei. Tom works as executive editor for technology at Bloomberg News, a big job. And he's going to interview Ellen, who is mayor of Mountain View and the director of government affairs and public information for the Foothill De Anza Community College District, and her mom, Rosemary, who is a council member in the city of San Jose. Come on up.
I want to start with you, Rosemary. I think all of us in this room can point back to, we all call the ALF Fellows experience, the year that we spent becoming fellows, as transformative. We saw it in the video, we saw it in the testimonies we've just heard. I want you to take us back to your year, your fellowship, and tell us about one moment, one story that crystallizes how the program was life-changing for you.
So, you know, I think that it's really appropriate that what was shown today was the wilderness, because, you know, I worked a lot with the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts. I've gone backpacking and trail, you know, I'm good on trails. And this was totally. And I was just surprised at, you know, just leaving all the technology, leaving everything behind, and just really having quality time with all the people that you're with. That wilderness experience taught me, you know, not to prejudge. So when we talk about having time for dialogue, it's something that I think that is critically important. And it taught me that, you know, I can't be as judgy. You know, I think that sometimes it took me a while to recognize that, in fact, you know, I need to pause. I need to allow to have that learning, and it was great. It was really, really great. So it's very appropriate that the wilderness came up today.
Thank you. Ellen, we're very clear in our mission, as David stated earlier, about the need to strengthen diverse leaders to serve the common good. You and your mother embody that mission through your commitment to public service. How has being part of ALF Silicon Valley helped you be a better leader?
Well, I think what I lamented in participating in the class has been the thing that the question I ask myself all the time, which is, are you all in? And having to go for every session, I know what sounds like one class is halfway through, having to ask myself that, especially in the times that we're living in right now, was, I think, such a good centering point in my public service journey. I feel like fortunate that growing up, I was taken to fundraisers, events, conventions by my mother, because her 3 decades of public service just instilled in me about getting involved. And I think that is another nugget that ALF asks is, what will you do to make your community better? How might you partner? And so in my ALF journey, I feel very fortunate that because I'm asked to now to talk about leadership, and I see our assembly member, I have to give him a shout out, Assemblymember Mark Berman in the back. Thank you for having us in your district, sir. But it's just so interesting how interconnected we are, because my mother and the assembly member had an overlap working in the nonprofit, and then I served as his district director. And so the ways that you can ask yourself what your public service journey can be is something that I feel very fortunate that I've had the experience with ALF.
You're part of a very rarefied group, multi-generational ALF family. How has that influenced and seasoned your experience of ALF Silicon Valley?
I would say that it really has amplified our work. For some reason, when I was growing up, I didn't know that every time my mother would take me to church and we would volunteer, I thought everybody did that, right? And so I followed suit, and Ellen and her brother always went to different events, and that is what we thought was the way to be. And so I think that having the connections that we've made through ALF has been tremendous. And I just think, it has really made connecting, whether it's with the private sector, the public sector, the nonprofit sector, the community itself, much more richer.
Ellen, I'd like to hear from you. You both remained involved after, as senior fellows. Why? And what are some of the unique ways that you stay in touch with your class?
Well, I have some classmates in the audience. Class 43. And I was so thrilled we're going to have class members on the board. And having just completed my experience 2 years ago, my experience is quite fresh. So my mother, I think hers was a decade ago, and my dad was class 4. So not only are we multi-generational, I am like an ALF baby because my dad did it, my mom did it, and now myself. But I think that we stay active in terms of, we have our class ambassador who I see in this room, we're engaged in the board, we have a WhatsApp. I think what's also really great and is a unique part of the ALF ecosystem is how we have been able to pipeline each other into other opportunities of service. And I just always feel like it's important to give a shout out to Dave Bulbuck, who is in the audience. He termed off of the Second Harvest Silicon Valley board, including his term as president of that board, and knows that Second Harvest has quite a presence in Mountain View, and pipeline me onto that board. But I'm not the only example of that. We have many people in our class who is doing that, and what a great way to populate kind of the ALF public servant leadership into other positions. And then I see that happening on the corporate side as well. So it's that's how we're able to stay in touch, and I think keep the message of ALF going. That's what's so important. I think people need inspiration and some light in these times.
You've both been committed to, well, this is a room full of people who are committed to investing in ALF. Why do you support ALF, be it with your time, treasure, or talent?
So, one of the things that I have learned about ALF and just having the connections of ALF is that ALF is tremendously powerful in the way in which you create positive outcomes for the community. And together, I know it sounds a little bit, stronger together, but in moments of distress, and right now we're living in a time where we need to pull together. We need to be one in terms of being able to create those positive outcomes for our community. And everyone who has been involved in ALF that I have ever known has been ready to, be the upstanders that we need, especially in this time.
In the last 2 minutes, we're at an inflection point with ALF. We're about to choose a new CEO, a bunch of new board members. Ellen, what's your hope for what this next chapter for ALF will hold, and your advice to the board members who are in the room?
I think as we're looking forward, I've thought about this quite a bit. The silence that we're experiencing is deafening. And we need a CEO, we need leadership, we need ALF to stand for courage. And I think being in this room with all of you in community shows me that we are not alone, and that new ALF leader, sorry, there's like ALF, ALF, it depends, I guess, your year, leader will take a stand, because I think that what the wilderness, not to go back to wilderness too much, but what wilderness shows is there isn't the loneliness that we think that we have. And I think COVID taught us that as well, that these journeys are with others, whether they're in front, next to you, behind, all as a supportive network. And I hope that as we go forward, our new CEO will do that.
Rosemary and Ellen, thank you so much for your service to our community and your service to ALF Silicon Valley.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
So how do you go from 12 board members to 22 board members? Like, how does that happen? What are you thinking? What are you thinking? And how do you make that happen? So I would like to introduce Rolanda Pierre-Dixon.
So helping select a new board. I've always been around ALF. I've always tried to skip out the back door, and they've always seemed to catch me by the tail end and say, Rolanda, can you do this? Rolanda, can you do that? So I sat now on the advisory board after having chaired the national board, after sat on our local board, after I said, I'm done. And then the call comes. Could you help us select a new board? Oh my God, I went, wait a minute, Heather. How can I, co-chair a board recruitment? I'm tired. I was ready with all my excuses. I'm busy. I don't have the bandwidth. New word for me. And the final great nugget, look, I'm old. Well, none of that worked. The bottom line, I said yes, which is sort of the ALF way. My co-chair was Tina Rogers Brown. Her and I met near Stanford, and we clicked right away. I knew then that we could do this. Find 10 new board members by September, and a few more by the end of March of 2026. Our marching orders for our new prospective members: nonprofit and or private sector executive leadership. A legal background would be nice. Finance and accounting skills, if they have them. Have a creative and pioneering mindset. Fundraising skills. And number one, ability to work well with others. And above all, we were asked, keep the board diverse so that it mirrors our community. And I am nothing if I'm not about that. We were set. Why? Because that is what ALF is. That is what ALF does. We then began to brainstorm some names, and the calls began. Was it tough? Okay, sometimes. Well, like all of us, everybody is busy. And for some of us, we can say super busy. Oh, the answers. I don't know if I could do it right now. Well, maybe in a couple years. But then we started talking to them about their personal ALF experience. I'm from the ALF, not the ALF time. Then the conversation really got started. Oh, this happened and that happened. And when I went on the wilderness and I had to regale them of me being a San Francisco native, being asked to go to the wilderness, I was all in for ALF when they called me. Very young attorney in the DA's office. Oh, yeah, I'll do it. And then the word wilderness popped up. I said, I'm out. I don't do that, okay? A day of roughing it for me is a night at the Holiday Inn. That's it. I'm done. But it took Blanca Alvarado and George Clooney just twisting both arms, saying I could do it. Well, of course I could, and of course I did. So we started talking about their personal ALF experience and the value of ALF currently in their lives. And then that conversation was opened up. What did ALF mean to them? And what was the value of ALF in their lives? You could see the power dynamic start to shift. The discussions evolved from, I'm just too busy right now, to, what can I bring to the table? How can I assist? Some of us have an art of doing that. I don't know who, but anyway. It wasn't all easy, but what Tina and I learned is most people just want to be asked. Even those that had to turn us down, and they were few and far between, said, please ask again when my schedule clears up. When you have a great organization built on the backs of great leaders, it will continue and thrive because we are all invested in its success. On behalf of Tina and I thank you for asking, and I am convinced you will be getting another great board that will take us all into the rich future ahead of us, despite what we may be going through now. But us ALFers know how to work through that. Oh, and by the way, I want to leave you with this last thought. A friend of mine told me this when I was given the John Garner Award so many years ago. She said to me, the greatest things come to you through the power of saying yes. Thank you.
So I want to segue into my closing remark, which will absolutely reflect what Rolanda just said. But first, I want to do two things. One, I want to thank the staff. So Richard Angel Vega, Mark Tolley, Allison Paul, Jenny Nicholas, and Maya Musa. Thank you for putting this together. And what kind of a CEO would I be if I didn't say that the simplest pledge card ever is on your tables? And if you haven't made your 2025 investment, I hate calling them gifts because you expect something in return. That's why I always call them investments. If you haven't made your 2025 investment, here's your chance, and you can make it a multi-year investment. Thank you in advance. So here's my close, and it is exactly what you said. It reflects what you said, Rolanda. And thank you to all of you who helped us put this together so quickly and did it so artfully. In my deepest appreciation, thank you. Nearly 4 decades ago, leaders put this group together. And what the through line has been one of service to this remarkable community and the joy of duty. I recently read a book by an author named Catherine Schultz. It's called Lost and Found. She wrote it while her dad was dying and she was falling in love. It's about how we have in front of us every day choices to make about where we're going to focus. Sometimes those tides turn us. Sometimes we actually have the willpower and we're centered enough to be able to say, this is where I want to focus. But the power of and the fact that all of those things exist at the same time give us the agency to choose where we're going to focus. And she wrote about what she thinks is the source of happiness. She said, if you derive happiness from a sense of duty, I actually think that is an infinitely sustainable source of happiness. In our worst moments, the thing that can sustain us is serving others. There's no community on earth that does not need your help. So if duty is a part of your sense of happiness, you will never have to look far to replenish it. I just love that. I really appreciate you coming today. I look forward to learning more from you in the future. And I want to thank you for being a part of this 850-person network that is just the coolest network in Silicon Valley. And you are all parts of the very best class. Thank you all.